out for my evening walk, and I was listening to a podcast this evening by a bishop called Jorge García Cuevas. He's from Argentina, and he's been made bishop now of one of the largest dioceses in the world, Buenos Aires. And I just heard it on the news. You know, the Pope had named him. He's 55 years old, so very young to be named a bishop of one of the largest dioceses in the world. So it's really interesting to know who is this guy. So I looked up a few of his talks on YouTube, and I was listening to them in Spanish. And he profoundly moved me in many ways. And in a very good way. I mean, this is a bishop who lived in a slum, barrio. We would call it a slum, and would be, a very impoverished area, who had worked in prisons. And he was there talking about, dealing with the everyday life of his work. And he mentioned a quote from Pope Benedict in his talk. And he says in Spanish, el amor es caridad, el amor sin fe es un sentimiento con dudas, or something like that. Love without faith is a sentiment that doubts. Because, to love like Christ wants us to love is not easy. It really is not easy. And, a lot of stuff that was coming to me in prayer was, who does Christ look at? Who is Christ looking at? Because where Christ's gaze is going, that's where I want to go. I want to go where he's looking, or he's gazing at. And Christ wants us, walking together to help each other. But where is he looking at? And if you look, and he was mentioning in the gospel, and I've often reflected on this, who are the people, who are the famous actors, protagonists, who are the people that we remember from the gospels? We remember the parable of Lazarus, that's the poor man and the rich man. We know the name of Lazarus, we don't know the name of the rich man. We know the name of Mary Magdalene, we don't know the name of the people that were going to stone her. We know the name of the man that, we know that there was a man who had his sight restored. We don't know the name of the Pharisees or the Sadducees. They're not named. The people that were blocking mercy and grace. Christ said, okay, I leave you to one side. Who needs to be loved? Who needs to be loved? Who do we need to reach? I just thought of, when I was listening to this new bishop, I just thought it was fascinating, his talk. Because we do need to listen more. If you think about it, our reverence for the Eucharist has to extend out to the reverence to the other. If you really meditate on this, our reverence to the Eucharist has to come out into the reverence to the other person. And that might be the person that we love, but that might be the person that Christ loves. Who does Christ love? If you think about it, who is Christ looking at? The migrant, the alcoholic, the drug addict, the criminal, and it's often, it challenges us. It challenges us to change a little bit, because you might say, well, I don't like that person. I don't like that person. And you turn to Christ. Christ, what do you think of that person? And he's there looking at that person with love. And you say, oh, I better conform my love to what Christ is doing. Like, if you look at where Christ is looking, and you say, well, Christ is looking at that. Why is Christ looking at that person? I don't feel. And that's where the faith comes in, because that's where the faith has to take over our feelings. I said, okay, I don't feel this, but this is, my faith is telling me this is who Christ wants me to help, to love. And this has to come out into our church. This has to come out into our world. If Christians loved like Christ loves, Christianity, Catholicism would transform the world. If we really received the body of our Lord, we would act like that body acted. in this world. We would go to the people that he went to and do what he asked us to do. So it's interesting. It's interesting the people that the Pope is elevating as bishops, because he's profoundly well trained, pastorally, intellectually. Like, the man has read, and I don't think he expected to become Archbishop of Buenos Aires. I'd say he was pushed into this because he was living in a barrio. He was living in a poor area in the south of Argentina, and he was made bishop down there, and then now he's been made bishop into Buenos Aires. So it's an interesting development that the Pope is doing, but we'll see what happens. He'll be leading that diocese for 20 years, so we'll see how this comes out here. Anyway, greetings from Mayo. I'm here, the Ox Mountains behind me. I'm here walking beside my house. It's behind my house. But I suppose I just wanted to get that message out there, because what Pope Benedict said is very, very true. Love without faith is a sentiment that that'll come and go, that we will follow as we go. But love with faith, it's a totally different reality. Because we have to take the Eucharist. We have to take the body that we receive, the body of our Lord we receive, and act like that body acted, and have the mind like that body had. It's quite a challenge, isn't it, in our spiritual life, to take the body of our Lord and to act like him in everything we did. I mean, if you just think about it, it just blows your mind. I think when you start meditating on this, it'll really challenge people. So I wish the new bishop all the best. I do think it's incredible to see what's happening in this church. And especially as traditional Catholics, it's good to have these times of silence and prayer, because you need those. Silence and reverence to be able to be with our Lord. But you have to bring that out to encounter who Christ is looking at. Because the people that Christ are looking at may not be at the Mass we attend. They may be somewhere else. And we have to go where Christ's gaze is looking. And that's not easy. That will challenge you. That isn't easy. It's always challenged me, when I have preconceived ideas, and then our Lord says, yes, very well, but that's not where I want you, Robert. That's not what I want you to do. And I said, but I'd love to do this. That's great, but that's your will, Robert. That's not where I want you talking to this person. I want you to go here. I want you to help this person or that person that's suffering, and I just want you to listen. And sometimes where Christ is looking will challenge you. Anyway, God bless you, and pray for the new Bishop of Buenos Aires, and let's hope that it'll be interesting to hear his stories and his mission and what he's doing, because I do think that our Lord is challenging us. He's challenging the church. He's challenging us like he never did before. If you think about it, in a world that calls us to be so differently formed, radically formed in a way in our spirituality, in our prayer life, in our spiritual direction. I mean, today is not easy to be Christian. It really isn't. Faith without love today, love without faith, to love with faith isn't easy. It isn't easy, and it requires a lot of meditation. So God bless you. Take care. Bye bye.